and thank you, viewers and lurkers alike. I'm Muse, and this is Tech Deals. Today, we're opening and playing with an Acer Nitro VG271U gaming monitor. I feel like some of the most important specs to look at when you're monitor shopping are size, refresh rate, resolution, response time, and display type. But I also like to zero in on the frame thickness and the stand or mount quality. Today, we're going to look at and break down every spec, but I'm curious to know, what do you think is most important? Let me know in the comments below. Today's video is brought to you by Ewin Racing, the best source for quality gaming chairs and desks at great prices. And we've got an amazing deal for you at the end of this video. So how do you know which ones to consider? Well, that really boils down to a few questions to ask yourself. What are you going to use it for? What parts do you need? And where would you like it to mount or rest? And the toughest question, what's your budget for monitors? And yes, I put an S at the end because a single monitor is so last decade. The only time you should have just one is when the computer is your media center attached to a television. For working or gaming, 2 monitors is a life changer for the multitasking you will inevitably need to do. If you are gaming competitively or a content creator, 3 monitors is ideal. Speaking for myself, I don't see being able to go back to less than 2. Having scripts pulled up full screen on one while recording full screen on the other, or having references up while reading on the other is a game changer. Yes, you can shrink windows and see multiple like I always have before, but it just isn't the same. Let's weigh the pros and cons of all the different specs we have here. But first, we should get it out of the box. There we go. Wiggled right down onto it. Okay, so the base looks nice, but it's definitely very top heavy. And it's wanting to lean forward. But it does have swivel to it. You just gotta be a little forceful with it. And then you can get it to be the right angle for you to actually view your screen well. So there we go. So I've got it on there. Now it's very top heavy. This does not seem large enough or sturdy enough for this monitor, to be honest. It would very easily just kind of tilt forward. If you had an animal, like my cats love to rub on the back of my monitors, this would probably slowly bend and eventually break the fronts of these legs over time, and it would just topple forward. So the length of the legs is all that's keeping it balanced right now. But as far as like the sturdiness, it's not amazing, and it's pretty darn wobbly. Like if I do that to my monitor at home, it does not move. So, yeah, I would want something a little bit sturdier because I do have 2 cats that love to randomly attack the screen when I'm playing games or come up on the desk. You know, they want attention randomly, or they just want to rub on the monitor because they want lovin's, you know. So I'd want something a little sturdier than this. But let's go ahead and go through our pros and cons of this monitor versus other monitors and where it stands as far as its price point, because its price point really isn't bad for what it offers. But let's see how it compares to some others on the market today. So we're looking at screen quality, not the quality of the benchmark running right now, because the poor little Aero 3 is, well, working its butt off and barely running this program. But we've already talked about that debacle. So in any case, it wasn't made to run this benchmark. So this is just the machine that was at my disposal to show you guys the screen quality. It is a wonderful screen. I don't see any parts of it burnt out whatsoever. So it did come in great quality. Let's talk about price for a second. So the price point for this, it retails for $359.99, but Acer actually has a deal going on it right now that's $299.99 on their website. So we will have the Acer link down there, as well as our Amazon, eBay, and all of our other affiliate links if you want to check the other websites. When you ask if something is a good deal on a monitor, really it just comes down to, are you paying retail for that monitor? It's really all it comes down to, because it's going to change weekly what the deals are on the same monitors. So the prices change constantly, and really you do get what you pay for. So it just comes down to, what does it normally retail for? Because while they might have the same specs for two different monitors, anywhere from the panel itself to the framework to the stand to the ports, something about it is going to be nicer if it's at a higher price point. Now, there is something to be said for how much do you care about that? That's entirely up to you. Now, let's talk about the specs of this monitor and who this is really for. So this is actually a 27-inch monitor. There's, of course, a lot of different sizes you can look to get. This is a WQHD. It's a 1440p, which means it's 2560 by 1440p for scale and for your resolution. So that's the really important part there. Now this is an Acer Nitro. Acer is a very strong, very nice brand. When you're looking at price points, they have so many similar monitors. They have basically the same monitor, but with different types of screens, because you've got your TN and your VA as well. So it's the same price point, but you can get the different panel types. Now, the panel itself, there's different grades. So you might see one with the same spec sheet that's a little bit less expensive for the regular retail price. That is typically due to the fact that most panels are made from the same factories. There's like 3 different producers of them, and there's different grades of those panels. So they roll out all of that paneling, they cut it into the panels, and then they grade them. And that's how they're put into these different grade categories. And so while you've got 2 monitors with the exact same specs, maybe the mouse is the same, maybe the ports are the same, everything could be identical, except when you're looking at them, there is a noticeable difference for the panels because it's a higher grade panel itself. So that is kind of where they get you with monitors, and that is another thing that can be very confusing. So beyond all the confusingness, the rest of this particular monitor's stats are going to be 144 Hz refresh rate. It has a 1 millisecond response time. It is VESA mount compatible, as I showed you guys before, so you can mount it since this stand is really wobbly and probably not enough for this monitor because it is pretty heavy. So you'd probably want to VESA mount this. The panel itself is an LCD IPS panel, meaning be careful about playing darker games because with IPS panels, you can expect backlight bleed. So you don't want to play the same game or the same screen super frequently because you'll end up with more backlight bleed. Now, the frame border is barely there. I really like that. It does tilt a little bit, so it's a little bit adjustable. It tilts forward about 5 degrees and back 20 degrees. So it tilts back more than forward, but most people aren't really tilting their monitor really far forward. It has 2 2-watt speakers. Not amazing, but who doesn't use external speakers these days? You're not getting the monitor for its speakers, let's be fair. It does come with a 3-year limited warranty, and it does do portrait view as well. Now it has 2 HDMI ports and 1 display port. It doesn't have any USB ports. It comes with 1 HDMI cable and 1 power cord. It does not come with a display cord. This monitor itself says it weighs about 10 pounds. The brightness is HDR 400, so up to 400 nits. And overall, basically, is it worth the price? Well, at $300, I would say that it is a $300 monitor. You are getting what you pay for. But of course, if you can find better deals, I'm all for finding a deal. Now with this monitor, HDR and FreeSync are unable to coexist together, whereas FreeSync 2 monitors will be able to do so. This is the first iteration of AMD FreeSync, so you can't use FreeSync and HDR at the same time. All right, so now I just want to look at our menu options and our setting accessibility because that is really important to me as well. So you've got your little analog stick back here. You just click that to pull up your menu. I can click it again to actually go through my settings myself. It's pretty straightforward. It does seem to be reacting pretty well to my toggling it. So let's see what all of our different settings are. You got your gamma, your color temperatures. You got your audio, of course. You can do gaming settings here. You got overdrive, FreeSync, refresh rate number, and then you've got your aim point, just kind of some more of your basic settings, and then your system settings. So you've got your input sources, your auto source here. Auto source is kind of nice, so that means that it switches to whatever port you're currently using. Like if you plug something into the HDMI port and you turn it on, it should automatically switch over to that port. Most smart TVs have that, but it's nice to have in your monitor, just depending on what you're using it for. Let's go ahead and go back into our system here. Our format, wide mode, we have it in full wide. So yeah, the rest of that is pretty straightforward. For the picture, let's see what other presettings they have. So it looks like they don't really have a lot of like presettings to choose from, which is interesting. Oh, here we go. Oh, here's our preset screen selection. Action, racing, sports, your own personal settings, HDR. Woo! Isn't that pretty? Graphics, eco, standard. All right, cool. So you do have those awesome presettings there to play with, or of course you can really in-depth customize your own monitor settings. Overall, I think it's really pretty. It's not too reflective of a screen, sending the light right back at you, which is nice. I do like the accessibility there and the system setting options there. So it gives you a lot of options to play with, and I definitely myself appreciate that. Now let's talk a little bit about the different types of panels, from IPS to VA to TN. Because if you're like me, you're shopping for a new monitor for the first time in a very long time, and it's all a little overwhelming. IPS is an in-plane switching monitor. It has amazing color accuracy and consistency, maximum available viewing angles, response time sufficient for most users, especially now since they've gotten much faster with advancements in technology, and they virtually eliminate color contrast shifts seen with VA panels. But they have below average static contrast ratios, potential glow from off angles when looking at darker images, and some motion blur you wouldn't see with TN monitors. IPS is recommended for color-critical professional applications like professional photographers, videographers, and content creators would use, as well as tech enthusiasts and gamers who value image quality over response time. But again, they have improved in response time tremendously, and this image quality with a 1 millisecond response time is great. So I feel like it's worth the trade-off to get that amazing color accuracy. Next is TN or twisted pneumatic monitors. Have rapid response times, lower prices, and sufficient contrast for most people, but has the most restrictive viewing angles, especially vertical. They are recommended for gaming due to their quick response times, and newer computer users due to their lower cost, but not recommended for color-critical applications. And last but not least, we have VA or vertical alignment monitors. There's also OLED, but that's typically more for TVs than monitors. VA have the maximum available viewing angles and high contrast ratios, but their response times are slower than the TN and sometimes have an off-center contrast shift. They are best for movies, photography and videography, content creation, and gamers who value the image quality over the response time with no motion blur. So basically, the big difference between the VA and the IPS is that sometimes with the IPS you can get a motion blur, but it's not real common. It doesn't happen very often, and the IPS is so much more color accurate that I do feel like the IPS actually has a bigger edge here than the VA. That being said, you are going to end up paying that price difference. IPS tends to be the most expensive type of panel that you can get. So the VA and the TN are going to be cheaper, with TN being the most affordable. But it has a much faster response time. So again, it really depends on what your needs are for your screen. So who is this monitor really for? This monitor is more for gamers who are gaming where they need that 144 Hz refresh rate. So you may not need a $300 monitor. It's really up to you and what games you're playing. Just like graphics cards, it really comes down to what are you using it for? That's the most crucial part here, because that's also going to determine what kind of panel you want. IPS, VA, or TN really depends on what you're using it for. Different types of content creators, different types of gamers, they're going to want different types of panels, and also what's your personal preference? Are you always sitting directly in front of the screen so you're okay with the loss of resolution when you switch from side to side, versus you want to be able to see it from anywhere in the room and still see that same beautiful picture, because some of them you can get a much better picture just being viewable straight on, but are you happy with only being able to view it that way? So there's different panel types for different users. This again has 144 Hz refresh rate, so of course you can find a monitor with all of the same specs with a lower refresh rate for much, much more affordable. So you'll have that lower Hertz refresh rate. But if you're doing competitive gaming, if you're doing shooting games, if you're doing like Fortnite or League of Legends, literally anything competitive, especially like if you're doing Call of Duty needs a high refresh rate, period. If you're doing World of Warships, if you're doing World of Warcraft PvP, you want to have that higher refresh rate. That's going to help you in battle. So you don't want to give that up. Every little bit will give you an edge. From your mouse to your keyboard to your monitor to your graphics card. Am I that amazing that all of that matters to me? I'm not that advanced yet, but I would like the option to be, and plus, you don't really know how much it's hindering you until you try the other. So I would say try it out if you're not sure. But for the most part, this monitor is going to be geared to people that are playing more of the shooting games, competitive games, and they need that high refresh rate. All right, so when it comes to comparing this monitor to other monitors out there, remember what I said. When you want to know if you're finding a deal and how this compares to other monitors, really, they are priced reasonably for the most part across the board at their retail prices. If there's a huge price difference, there's a difference there even if you're not seeing it. Now, if you can't tell, even when you're seeing them both side by side, face to face, then it's probably not worth paying a bunch more money for it if it doesn't make a difference to you personally. So definitely keep that in mind. But there is something to be said for getting what you pay for. So just keep in mind that retail is the right price. As far as comparisons go, I am going to put this side by side with another monitor in my next review. This is my first monitor review, so this is the only one that I've got unboxed on the table right now, and my personal monitor is at home. So I will put it side by side with another monitor to give you guys a fair comparison next video. And I will also compare them with prices so you can see what I'm saying about the price difference and how that really does correlate with the difference in monitor. Because the specs themselves for the next monitor might not be that different, even if the price tag is $100 or $200 different. So if you guys have any particular monitor that you'd like to see us review in the future, definitely let us know in the comment section down below. And also feel free to ask us any other questions that come to mind. We would love to answer them next video. If there's anything at all that I missed, definitely let me know. If you have any questions versus different panel types, different resolutions, different refresh rates, anything at all that comes to mind, we would love to answer those questions for you, and it gives me the new material for my next video. So that's everything I have for you guys today on this monitor here. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video if you liked it, give it a share, subscribe if you haven't, click the bell for notifications of future content, comments, thoughts, feedback, and suggestions. Hit me with your best shot down below. Be sure to check that video description for links to everything discussed here and more, all of our affiliate links, which help our channel at no additional cost to you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Have an incredible day, and I'll see you next time. You ready for that deal I mentioned? Ewin Racing has a wide selection of chairs to fit all shapes and sizes of gamers, ranging from petite to cuddly with something for every type and style of gamer. Tons of color options, material options, recline options, desk options, floor mat options. Yeah, you get it. Options. Using our code TECHDEALS gets you 30% off everything Ewin using the link in the video description. Our channel has used Ewin gaming chairs and desks for 3 years in our office, sitting on those chairs for up to 8 hours during live streams. They are very comfortable, and we are happy to work with Ewin to bring you this amazing deal and recommend Ewin for all your gaming chair and desk needs. If we've sparked your interest, we have a playlist of our chair and desk videos linked in the video description.